Welcome back to ZBCN Today, your daily source for deep insights, bold analysis, and the latest updates from the world of Zebec and Web3 finance. Here, we don't just report the news, we decode it, simplify it, and show you what really matters in the markets. Even when you take a quick look at what Zebec has done so far, it becomes very clear that this is not just another project going through the motions. This is something that has direction, purpose, and persistence. Let's talk about the recent Kraken listing first. When you really stop to think about it, listings like these are not just another headline in the crypto world. They're more like milestones, checkpoints that mark progress in a project's journey. The Kraken listing in particular isn't only about accessibility or liquidity, it's about credibility. It's a signal to the broader market that Zebec isn't just existing in the background. It's being recognized by platforms that have extremely high standards for what they list. So when I saw that, my first thought was simple. This is a step, maybe even a small one, but a step in the right direction nonetheless. Because sometimes it's these seemingly small advancements that later define how a project is perceived when the next bullish wave comes. Everything shared in this video is for educational and informational purposes only. This is not financial advice. Always do your own research before making any investment decisions. Now it's true. An exchange listing doesn't instantly turn a project into a moonshot, especially if the market is in a cooling phase. We've seen this countless times. But here's the thing. Listings are never about the present moment. They're about preparation. They're about setting up the foundation so that when sentiment returns, liquidity follows more easily, and the project can capitalize on momentum without having to scramble for visibility. That's exactly why I find Zebec's strategy interesting. They're not chasing hype. They're preparing for the next cycle, methodically, quietly, and with purpose. And that approach, in my opinion, is what separates long-term survivors from short-term opportunists. When you zoom out and look at the current DeFi and payments landscape, you start to see how few projects are truly innovating. Of course, we have giants like Stellar and Ripple who have established their positions as pioneers in the payments sector. But beneath those top-tier names, the mid-level infrastructure builders like Zebec, Onyx XCN, XDC, and SwiftCoin are forming a different kind of network, one that's more flexible, more experimental, and closer to the evolving edge of Web3 finance. These are not just clones of each other. Each is trying to address a different friction point in the existing system. Zebec's focus has been steady on real-time payments, payroll streaming, and the smooth transfer of funds without intermediaries, all of which are fundamental for making crypto useful beyond trading charts. A consistency. While so many projects have been losing relevance because of market fatigue or lack of updates, Zebec has stayed active. Whether it's integrations, ecosystem growth, or compliance updates, they keep building. That kind of rhythm is not flashy. It's not going to dominate headlines every week, but it's what keeps a project alive and healthy over time. It shows that Zebec is not reacting to the market, but building regardless of it. And for investors who've been around long enough, that's usually a signal worth paying attention to. Adoption doesn't appear overnight. It's gradual, layered, and often invisible in its early stages. The first step of adoption isn't usage, it's awareness, it's credibility, and that's exactly what listings achieve. When a project like Zebec secures a listing on Kraken, it tells people, both investors and institutions, that this project has met the technical, security, and compliance standards of a top-tier exchange. That in itself is no small feat. So even if user adoption is still developing, the groundwork is there. The story is building. And as we've seen in every major crypto cycle, narrative often precedes adoption. The crypto market moves on narratives before it moves on numbers. When you understand that, you start to see why something like Zebec's recent listing matters. It strengthens the narrative that Zebec is becoming part of the financial infrastructure layer of Web3. It aligns them with the kind of platforms that institutions trust. It puts them in the right rooms, the right ecosystems, and the right conversations. So instead of focusing on immediate price effects, it's better to view this as long-term positioning. because in crypto, position often determines who wins when sentiment returns. Now, let's talk about visibility and marketing. A lot of projects spend huge amounts of money on sports partnerships, influencer marketing, or flashy campaigns. And while those things can help create awareness, they're not always sustainable. Zebec, however, seems to be choosing a different path. Their partnerships, like the one involving Uphold and the Vegas Golden Knights in the NHL, were interesting and did bring some brand exposure, but the real value is coming from their product-driven visibility. Kraken listing, Bitfavo listing, collaborations with Algorand, ISO 2022 compliance updates, these things don't just make noise, they build trust. They tell serious investors that the project has real momentum and structural backing, not just hype. They create liquidity, they build investor confidence, and they directly expand the user base. So even if Zebec wasn't making headlines every week, I'd still be more impressed by these organic achievements than any marketing stunt. That's why when I saw the Kraken news, I thought, yeah, this is exactly the kind of move I want to see from a serious project that understands long-term value creation. Yes, Zebec's token, ZBCN, has pulled back significantly from its earlier highs. But so has almost every altcoin in this market. The important thing is how the project responds during these low phases. And from what I can see, Zebec hasn't stopped. They've continued building, expanding, and improving their ecosystem. The market cap is still relatively modest. It's not in the multi-billion-dollar range yet, and that's precisely why these listings are so important. Kraken and Bitfavo don't just list random tokens. There's a vetting process. So if Zebec managed to get listed there, it means they're maintaining a level of professionalism and reliability that even larger projects struggle to maintain. Think about it. When a small or mid-sized project gets listed on a major exchange, it doesn't just happen by luck. It happens because there's visible effort behind the scenes. Technical due diligence, legal coordination, smart contract audits, these things don't come cheap or easy. So when I see Zebec's token being accepted by such exchanges, I can't help but appreciate the discipline and effort that must have gone into making that happen. It tells me that this isn't a project waiting for the market to rescue them. They're taking initiative. They're building their credibility brick by brick. Let's also talk about fundamentals, because the fundamentals are actually where Zebec has been making the most progress quietly. The Zebec Card, for example, allows users to spend crypto in real time just like cash. That's not some futuristic concept, that's actual usability. Then you have the focus on ISO 2022 compliance, which is a big deal for integrating with global financial systems. This shows that Zebec isn't just thinking in the short term. They're building infrastructure that can communicate with traditional finance, something that could prove crucial as regulatory frameworks evolve. And then there's the partnership with Algorand, which reinforced Zebec's cross-chain vision. That collaboration wasn't just symbolic, it was a clear sign that Zebec aims to connect ecosystems, not isolate itself. Add to that their ventures into AI-based payments and real-world asset integration, and you start to realize that Zebec's long-term plan is multi-layered. They're not just creating a single product. They're building an entire financial ecosystem around programmable real-time payments. That's ambitious, and it's the kind of ambition that makes investors pay attention even during quiet markets. Now, here's what's really interesting. Back in the early days, Zebec didn't have all these elements. It was more of a concept, a vision for streaming money and improving payroll systems using blockchain technology. Yet even back then, the token managed to capture attention and perform relatively well during bullish moments. That tells you something about market confidence in the idea itself. Fast forward to now, and that idea has evolved into an ecosystem with real-world products, compliance strategies, and institutional partnerships. If Zebec could achieve decent growth back then without all this, imagine what can happen when these new layers start showing real adoption. It's about how a project that started small is slowly shaping itself into something much larger. And while prices go up and down, that evolution, that consistent effort, is what keeps me watching. It's easy to get caught up in short-term charts, But long-term success in crypto often comes down to resilience, adaptability, and timing. Zebec seems to be aligning all three of those qualities quite well. So where does that leave us right now? Well, realistically, everything still depends on the broader market. If we get an altcoin season, Zebec is positioned well to take advantage of it. It has liquidity, visibility, and a growing ecosystem. But even if the market stays quiet for a while, Zebec has something that many other projects don't: steady progress. And that progress creates value in itself, because once momentum returns, projects like Zebec, which have continued to build during the tough times, are usually the first to take off. They signal that Zebec is entering a new phase of legitimacy and recognition. They show that the groundwork is complete and the structure is forming. Now, it's just about time and patience. Because while the hype may have cooled, the fundamentals have strengthened, and that's what really matters. And that wraps up today's breakdown here at ZBCN Today. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and keeps us bringing you more daily updates on Zebec and the entire Web3 ecosystem. Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your take.